सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। Hari Om everyone. Verse number 11 onwards, or you can say 12th verse onwards, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is describing how Upadhi conditions this Atman. So first he spoke about Upadhis in the way of three shariras, the three bodies that are there, gross body, subtle body and causal body. Identified with them, we start owning up all the modifications of these three bodies. So purpose of describing Upadhi is to tell us what we are not and to point out who we are. One word is called as Upadhi. Okay, definition we saw earlier. Upasamipe sthitva sviyan dharman anyatra adatte iti Upadhi. Staying close to something, it throws its attribute on that thing without actually bringing out any modification. Another word is called as Visheshana. So one is Upadhi, second is Visheshana. What is the difference between Upadhi and Visheshana? Visheshana example would be if I say a yellow flower. Okay, so that yellowness is a Visheshana for flower. What otherwise you call as adjective. So what is the difference between Visheshana and Upadhi? He said Visheshana points out something by actually entering that thing. Means you cannot separate yellowness and the flower. That yellowness has entered the flower and then it is indicating that flower. But Upadhi is not like that. Upadhi has not brought about any change in that thing, even if it is appearing like to be even if it appears to be affected. Just like example we saw was of that crystal and the cloth or a flower or something. The crystal appears red, it appears blue, but actually speaking, it has not undergone any change. But in the case of Visheshana, that whatever that Visheshana is, it has actually entered that Visheshya, that object, and then it is indicating that thing. Upadhi will indicate a certain thing without bringing about a change in that thing. So why are these different Upadhis being mentioned? So one Upadhi was the three Sharira. We had Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. Now the same thing is divided into Panchakosha. Okay, it is not another new thing that we are discussing. The same three Sharira only If you classify it differently, it is called as Panchakosha. So we said the Sthula Sharira is mapped directly to Annamaya Kosha, the food sheath or this physical gross body. Sukshma Sharira is mapped to Manomaya Kosha or Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. Okay, out of this Pancha Kosha, the first one is Annamaya, second is Pranamaya, the physiological sheath. Then comes Manomaya or the mental sheath, and Vijnanamaya, third one, which is called as intellectual sheath. All these three together is what we call as subtle body. And the last one, Karana Sharira, is mapped to Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath. The classification is done in this way. One reason is that subtle body, the more you are able to separate it out, then we understand how this is operating. That is where most of the confusion happens. So that Upadhi, if we can get a finer, cross-section view of that, then it is easier for us to understand. That is one reason. And second reason is different Upanishads describe these Upadhis in different ways. So Panchakosha Viveka is done in Taittiriya Upanishad, in particular Bhruguvalli, the third chapter of Taittiriya Upanishad. There the entire method of inquiry is through Panchakosha. So that is why a different way of classifying, a different way of inquiry is being pointed out, arriving to the same truth. Okay, so it is called as Prakriya. Prakriya means different methods of reaching to the same point. One Prakriya we already saw in our previous text, right? Drugdrishya Viveka. So what is the Prakriya there? Doing Viveka between Drashta and Drushya. So it's a method of inquiry through which you can arrive at nature of consciousness. Shariratraya Viveka, method of inquiring through these three bodies. So you use that approach, you will reach to the same point. Panchakosha Viveka, method of inquiring through those five koshas, you will reach the same point. So we should not have any insistence upon which method is better, not trying to do a comparative study. Most importantly, whichever one we are able to hold on to, that we should hold on strongly. And other methods which are there, they will only come and deepen our knowledge. So it is not that once you understood Drugdrishya Viveka, Panchakosha Viveka will be confusing. I say no, Panchakosha will give a lot of clarity. So in that way we can look at it. Okay, so what is this method? It is only different method of inquiring into the same truth. Shariratraya is now called as Panchakosha Viveka. So this Viveka Prakriya, somebody asked a question now to Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji. What is the method of this inquiry? So then came the 16th verse. We'll chant together. Vapustu shadhibih koshaihi yuktam yuktyaavaghatatah atmanamantaram shuddham vivichat tandulam yatha. So the example Bhagavan gives here is how we should do this separation. Tushadibihi yuktam tandulam yatha. Just like that rice grain, which is having all the husk and everything on top of it. Avaghatataha vivichat. You have to separate it out by doing this avagata. Pounding should be done to separate out that husk from that grain. He says in the same way, vapuhu koshaihi yuktam yuktya avaghatataha shuddham atmanam vivichat. This body and all the five sheaths which are there, they are as though covering this Atman. just like that husk is covering that grain of rice, all these panchakoshas which are there, they are covering our own true nature as consciousness. He says those should be separated out by doing the same avaghata, but not physical founding, it is intellectual inquiry. Yuktya avaghatataha vivichat. What should I separate out? Shuddham Atmanam. That Atma which is ever pure and ever available to me, that I should recognize different from these panchakoshas. Now that yuktya avaghatataha, right? That word we will see now. Okay, I hope the literal meaning of this verse is clear. Yuktya avaghatataha is what we otherwise call as mananam. Somebody might ask, what is this, yuktya avaghatataha? You see, there is a method in which we should inquire into the nature of truth. And more we can hold on to it, more we understand what is the method of inquiry, it becomes easy for us to take any text and reflect on that text. So, what is the first thing that is needed? He said that sadhaka of Vedanta should be very mananashila. Means he should love to think. Because Vedanta and thinking, they as though go together. Right? So Vedanta sadhaka should always be mananashila. Where do I start? How do I become that sadhaka and develop this ability to dwell on Shastra? He says first thing that is needed is puja bhava towards Vedanta. Puja bhava means having a sense of reverence for this knowledge. And wherever there is this reverence, lot of thinking will happen. Means knowing that there is more depth in this knowledge. And I am that mumukshu, I am that jijnasu. I am having that kind of desire to know more and more of each word of Vedanta. So then this sadhaka will become mananashila. He will like to think more and reflect more. If you want more precise guidance on how to increase this mananam, we should go back to the first two verses of Sadhana Panchakam. Vedo nityam adhiyatam, all the way until Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Then comes Vakyarthascha Vicharyatam. That is the same Yuktya Avaghatataha. That first two shlokas, all those sadhanas, at least few if we can practice, he says that will give us this ability, it will make our mind to think in Vedantic Shastra. But in particular, over here, what it means is, whenever nature of Atman is pointed out, we should be able to let go of everything which is contrary to that nature. So, for example, one of the quality of Atman is it is niravayava, without parts. So now I should start thinking what all things are partless. Simple example, take this body. Is body with parts or is it partless? You say, no, body is with parts. And Bhagavan has given two things where you can know that it is with parts. One is nail, another is hair. He says, even if it is part of your body, you are able to trim it and leave it aside. In the same way, it is all different parts put together is called as body. Annamaya kosha we are thinking about now. Yuktya avaghatataha. So nature of Atman is niravayava and this body is savayava. It is with parts. So I am not this body. Atman has to be something which is beyond this body. Like this, each kosha, there is yukti which is pointed out. And this method of inquiry is taken from, again, Taittiriya Upanishad only, where the student, his name is Bhrugu, he goes to his father and says, "Oh father, teach me the nature of Brahman." And the method of teaching is very interesting. In Bhruguvalli, Upanishad Rishi, he doesn't give any Mahavakya. He only says, "Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti, yad abhisamvishanti, tad vijijnasasva." He says, Brahman is that from which this entire creation has come about. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. From that consciousness alone, this entire creation has come about. It is sustained in that and it goes back into that. Now you go and find out what that thing is. He doesn't even give the word consciousness. He only says Tad Brahma. That thing is called as Brahma. And he says, you go and do tapas. Tapas means what? You do thinking. Okay, Jnanamayam tapa it is. Thinking itself is one kind of tapas. Not any kind of thinking, thinking in line with Upanishadic teaching. So this Bhrigu is a very obedient child. He goes and starts doing tapas. And he comes to this conclusion that what could be that thing, from which this entire creation has come about, it is sustained and it goes back into. So he comes and says, maybe it is food, because from food alone, all these things have come. All the beings are sustained in food and they go back into food. So his first conclusion back to his teacher is, Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat. Oh teacher, I have understood that Annam is Brahma. Means first of all, Annamaya Kosha also you can take it, but he has understood that Annamaya Kosha is not only this limited entity. This entire gross world that I'm seeing is made up of same Annam. So first he has expanded his individual kosha into samashti. Samashti means totality. He says from that total, Annam, this entire creation has come about. Teacher says, think more. Then he again goes back to his corner, does tapasya, thinks more. Comes back and says, now I have understood, Pranam Brahma. From Annamaya, now he has gone to Pranamaya. Why? He says that Lakshana that you told me of Brahma, that from which everything has come, that from which everything, that in which everything is sustained, that into which everything goes back. That indicator you told me of Brahma, that applies to Prana, I think. He says from Prana alone, everything has come. Our life is sustained because of Prana. And then it goes back into Prana. When Prana is not there, nothing is expressing sentiency. So like this, each kosha, he goes on negating. Why are we discussing this? Yukti avaghatataha. That is the point we are trying to understand here. Yukti means what? Lakshana of Brahma is given, and I am able to think and let go of things which are contrary to that Lakshana. Lakshana means indicator. So if Brahma is what Bhrigu Rishi told, that from which everything comes, is sustained, and it goes back. So the yukti that Bhrigu is using is that this Brahma is something which is cause of creation or origin of creation. Right? That is what I am trying to find. All the things which I am telling is again part of creation. Anna is part of creation, prana is part of creation, mind is part of creation. Everything is part of creation and it becomes drushya. It becomes known to me. So whatever is known to me and which is part of creation cannot be the origin of creation. So there should be something which is different from all of these. So then he goes and understands It is that absolute truth which is beyond all these koshas, that alone is Brahma. Yuktya avaghatataha. Again and again, thinking in these lines. And that Shuddha Atma, we don't have to do anything. It is only through clear inquiry we are able to recognize it. It is ever experienced. What we have to do is Atad Dharma Vyavartanam. What we saw in Bhagavad Gita class. Right? Atad Dharma means Lakshana of Brahma is one, and in that I'm including things which are contrary to it. Viviccha Tandulam Yatha. And that process of pounding, that pounding and making the husk to be different from that rice, it's very nice to see also. One is it's very consistent. When they pound it, it's not a random, process. It's very, very rhythmic. And in some villages, if you go, they will sing songs, while doing that. Means that process of inquiry should also be joy-giving. In the beginning, it might not seem like that. Or Vedantic sadhana, anything that we start meditation, we start feeling we are feeling sleepy. Doing japa, we start, mind is going all over. Attending Vedanta class early morning, 6:30, feeling drowsy again. So what is this, joy-giving sadhana? He says, no. In the beginning, it is like that. But gradually, when we get a taste and we understand what is being spoken here is about my nature, not somebody else. I am this Shuddha Atman. Then it becomes even more relevant. So just like that pounding is done in a rhythmic way, our effort also should be consistent effort. Whatever we have taken up, right, for study or anything, when there is consistency, then we see even short time if we are giving to it, that thing will start showing result. This is true with any form, any art form also, study, anything. Shorter duration is okay, but if it is consistent every day, even 15 minutes, 10 minutes of vichara, that itself is going to help us a lot. And this husk, which is separated out from that grain of rice, it is said after you separate out, make sure that you let go of that husk. Means what? After separating Panchakosha from Atman, there should be some vairagya, if not a lot of vairagya, to say that this Panchakosha I am not. Otherwise, what will happen is we will separate out rice and husk. Instead of letting go of that husk, we will let go of that rice and take only that husk. This Panchakosha has been separated out nicely, but when it comes to taking a decision, when it comes to Vyavahara, our vote will always be for Panchakosha. Vivichat Tandulam Yatha. Vivichat meaning Vivekena Janiyat. Know it through this Viveka, know it through this inquiry, but most importantly, building our personality in such a way that we become these Vedanta sadhakas. Right? Manana Shilavan, one who is able to have a quiet mind and is not bothered by small things. That mind will be able to do this Vedanta Vichara. Now the student has probably another question. He says this Atman which is there, you say it is all pervading, it is of the nature of consciousness. But whatever I see, it doesn't appear to be in the same way. So I don't see any of these things to be sentient in that sense. So to answer that question, this verse has come. This point we have seen in other texts also, but every time a shloka comes, our effort should be to either clarify that point if it did not get clarified before, And if that point is clear, then something new will be introduced over here. Okay, so that we should keep an eye out for. Sada sarvagatoप्यात्मा, sada sarvagatoप्यात्मा, न सर्वत्रावभासते, न सर्वत्रावभासते, बुद्धावेवावभासेत, बुद्धावेवावभासेत, स्वच्छेषु प्रतिबिम्बवत्, स्वच्छेषु प्रतिबिम्बवत्, सदा सर्वगतोऽप्यात्मा, न सर्वत्रावभासते, बुद्धावेवावभासेत, स्वच्छेषु प्रतिबिम्बवत्. सदा सर्वगतः अपि आत्मा न सर्वत्र अवभासते. So literal meaning is, even though, api means even though this Atman is all pervading, it is not recognized everywhere. What is not recognized? So what is the nature of Atman? Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means it is of the nature of existence. Chit is it is consciousness. Ananda means it is infinite. It is Anantam. So that Sat portion, existence portion is recognized, but Chit portion, the consciousness part of it, that we cannot recognize everywhere. Why? He says, Buddhau eva avabhaseta. There is only one place where this consciousness is recognized. He says, where is it? I want to go and find it. He said, don't go far. It is right here. Buddhau, in our mind, in our intellect, it is the illuminator witness of thoughts. So don't search for consciousness anywhere else. Search for it as the witness of thoughts. Buddhau eva avabhaseta swachcheshu pratibimbavata. Example, one way to look at it is that sunlight which is falling, it falls on all objects, right? It falls on that floor also, it falls on the road also. But it does not get reflected, that sunlight is not clearly seen over there. It is only seen in that mirror or some pond of water, which is clean. So an appropriate medium is required for reflection to take place. That doesn't mean other places reflection is not happening. It is happening, but it is not recognized. Why? Because reflection always depends on the nature of medium. This point we saw in Drigdrishya Vivek also. Nature of medium determines the type of reflection, whether or not it will be recognized. So that reflection has nothing to do with original. Right? So if you want to recognize consciousness, the doorway for us to recognize through Chit, he says that is this Buddhi. You go right to thoughts, and thoughts are seen. The seer is that Atman. Buddhau eva avabhaseta swachcheshu pratibimbavata. Okay, this is a very straightforward, literal meaning of the shloka. Just like that sunlight falls everywhere, but reflection of it is recognized only in that pond of water. In the same way, this consciousness is all pervading, but it is recognized only in Buddhi. So in meditation, whenever we get a doubt, where is consciousness? What should I meditate upon? He says, meditate upon this witness of thoughts. Close all other sense organs so that other inputs are reduced. Come right to thoughts and then shift attention to witness of thoughts. And if Vedanta knowledge is clear and sadhanas are done, then thoughts will not be too much bothering. This is when we will realize the importance of that chaupai. Hoi hi soi jo Ram rachi rakha, ko kai tarka badhave saka. That if we have done our part in Vyavahara, and we have not held on to things too strongly, then meditation becomes effortless. I have to deal with minimum number of thoughts, and a pure mind will have not as many agitating thoughts. So that will help us to first settle down and then shift attention, to Sakshi. Otherwise, we had seen that image, right, of that football game, one soccer going from here to there and then to another person and so on. So our thoughts also become like that. 45 minutes or half an hour meditation session, all I end up watching is another football game. So if I have to shift attention to Sakshi, then one is Vyavahara should be Shuddha. That is why that second interpretation is Swachheshu Pratibimbavata. He says that even if the reflecting medium is available, unless it is clean, the reflection is not clearly seen. Means that puddle of water or whatever reflection medium is there, it should be clean. Mirror also, if you say that mirror should be clean, then that reflection is seen very clearly. So in this buddhi also, if mind is clean, mind is pure, then the reflection of that ananda is recognized and is available very clearly. So that is another way to look at this point. Swachheshu Pratibimbavata. Bhagwan could have written Jaleshu Pratibimbavata. Jaleshu means what? Just like in water, sunlight gets reflected, but he says no. It says Swachheshu Pratibimbavata. Means in a pure water, this knowledge or this consciousness is recognized and we can benefit from this knowledge. Because the reflection of consciousness happens in all jivas. It is not that only because we are studying Vedanta, reflection is happening in our intellect. He says in any intellect, reflection of consciousness is happening. But only that intellect which has knowledge, that intellect will be able to benefit from this knowledge along with purity of mind. And what is it that we are not recognizing right now? He says this Atman is ever shining, it is ever available. What we are not recognizing is the glory of this Atman. Right? We are not recognizing that this Atman I is Asanga. Means I am unaffected by any thoughts or anything of this world outside as that pure consciousness. And another thing we are not appreciating is this consciousness is infinite. It is all pervading. So that aspect gets hidden. In what? In that impure mind. Even if knowledge is there, everything is there, this mind is not able to assimilate this teaching. Padmapadacharya ji, he translated that first line, right? Sarvatra na sarvatra avabhasate. Not everywhere this reflection is seen. He says, Jadaihi bahihi pravritta akshaihi na prakashate. Means that mind which is still caught up on certain things of the world outside, getting pulled away more and more by external things, he says that mind will not be able to settle down with this knowledge. Bahi pravritta akshaihi. Means that is natural tendency of our mind to go outside. But for a Vedanta sadhaka, that sadhaka has to be avrutta chakshu. Being able to pull the mind back, and even if it has to go outside, with lot of alertness, the sadhaka has to go outside. And buddhau eva avabhasate means buddhi guhayam. Yo veda nihitam guhayam. Whenever the word guha is used, what it means is, cave of the heart, cave of the intellect. All it means is the same, the witness of thoughts. That is why we have to recognize this consciousness. In a devotional context, the same line comes in Ramcharitmanas, where all devatas have gathered and they are, wanting to pray to Bhagavan and ask him to take avatara, because Ravana's lot of chaos is going on and they want Bhagavan to take avatara. So they have a assembly. Brahmaji is there, all other devatas are there. And they are wondering where to find Bhagavan now, so that we can go and pray to Bhagavan. So everybody gives one answer. Somebody says, let us find Bhagavan in Kailasa. Somebody says, let us find in Vaikuntha. And then one chaupai comes where Bhagavan Shiva says to Parvati ji, Hari Vyapaka Sarvatra Samana Premate Pragata Hoi Main Jana. That I know that I was also, and he tells Parvati ji, when this discussion was going on, I was also there. And when the right time came, I said something. Parvati ji must have asked, what did you say? I said, Hari Vyapaka Sarvatra Samana. That this consciousness or Bhagavan is all pervading in the same way. Means it is not that he is reflecting only in one intellect and not reflecting in another intellect, or is available only in one person, not available in another person. So if that is the case, why isn't everybody able to recognize it? He says, for Bhagavan to become pragata, to become available to us, we need to have prema in our heart. Premate pragata hoi main jana. Means buddhau eva avabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. In that same pure mind, this consciousness is recognized very clearly. How to have a pure mind? There also a lot of sadhanas are given in Ramcharitmanas. One of it that we saw was Nirmala Manajana So Mohi Pava Mohi Kapata Chala Chidrana Bhava. He says Nirmala Mana, whoever has, that person will be able to know this truth. Bhagavan says he will be able to know me. But what is this Nirmala Mana? How do I get that Swachha Mana? He says three things stay away from. Kapata, Chala, Chidra. Kapata means pretentiousness, Chala means deceit, and Chidra means falsity. These three things, if a sadhaka can stay away from, he says that mind will soar higher now. And this swachhata which is there, right? It is something that we experience as a result of sadhana. Pavitrata, anubhuti, which is there, experience of that pavitrata should happen after every sadhana. Like whenever we go to any pilgrimage spot, we take a dip somewhere in a river, Gangaji or whatever, that holy places. You feel that you have become purer than before. Not physically, but in the mind. This is what was said as Kshina Papanam. In the first verse we had seen, right? Tapo bihi Kshina Papanam. Means our internal mechanism is such that even if there were some kind of tendencies to hold on to any negative tendencies, now that sadhaka feels, I myself don't want to do it. Why? Because he has tasted that joy of pavitrata. Somebody who is a, what do you call as, cleanliness freak, always like to keep everything clean, then what do? If something has come from somewhere, immediately they'll go and wipe it. Even cloth also is like that. Something has fallen somewhere, immediately they will change it. So if we can develop the same tendency with our mind, then we have become this sadhaka. Even if there is one thought, not easy, huh? It's a Vedantic sadhana. But that is what is expected over here, Swacheshu Pratibimbavat. Even if there is one thought which is against our values, dharma, making sure that we are seeking Bhagwan's help to remove it. So that pavitrata, once it comes, then it's very reassuring for the sadhaka that I'm on the right path. Right? Pavitrata is not for anybody else's sake. It is for us only to experience that purity and see how cheerful that mind becomes when we are pavitra. Even at physical level, we see, right? Taking a bath gives so much of joy. Why? Because there is pavitrata over there. So, what to talk about pavitrata of mind? So, that mind, Bhagavan says, will be able to recognize and hold on to this knowledge. Now, the student is asking probably another question. He says, how come this Atman is seated amidst all these conditionings? You said Panchakosha, Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karna Sharira. It is seated amidst all of that. How come it is still not affected by any of it? He says, Bhagavan says, Atman is Udasina. Udasina means what? It is always seated above. Okay, indifferent as though to all these things which are happening. So to illustrate that point, this verse has come, verse number 18. Dehendriyamana buddhi, dehendriyamano buddhi, dehendriyamano buddhi, prakrutibhyo vilakshanam, prakrutibhyo vilakshanam, tadvrittis sakshinam vidyat, tadvrittis sakshinam vidyat, atmanam rajavatsada, atmanam rajavatsada, dehendriyamano buddhi, prakrutibhyo vilakshanam, tadvrittis sakshinam vidyat, atmanam rajavatsada. Deha, Indriya, Mano, Buddhi. All these upadhis which are there, like body, mind, sense organs, intellect, everything is some or the other conditioning. Prakrutibhyo vilakshanam. Understand that nature of these things, prakriti of these things, is vilakshana. Vilakshana means viparita lakshana. It is very much contrary to what? To the nature of Atman. Okay, so Deha, Indriya, Mano, Buddhi, nature of all these things is contrary to nature of Atman. So how is it contrary? So just now we discussed. All these things become drushya. They become known to us. Atman is that which is drashta. It is drugeva natu drushyate. It will never become known to our sense organs. All of them are inert. Body is inert, sense organs are inert, mind is inert. This is where that definition of Sukshma Sharira will be helpful. What is mind? He says mind is also a Panchikrita Pancha Mahabhuta, ungrossified 5 elements. So that is why it is inert only. It expresses sentiency because of its nature, but it's not inherently there in the mind. So like this, know the difference between Atma and all these upadhis. Then how should I own up this knowledge? He says, Tad vritti sakshinam vidyat atmanam rajavatsada. Know that you are the witness of all these thoughts. One way to understand this is Deha, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi, and the world outside. All of them are known through thoughts only. And what is the knowledge? That I am witness of these thoughts. What is the example? He says, Atmanam Vidyat Rajavatsada. Just like the king who is there, there is so much going around that king, that procession is going around, parade is going around, but that king is not affected by any of it. But important point is, without the king, there is no parade, right? They will not come and just march, like, during the inauguration or some national day. The main dignitary has to be there for that parade to take place. So in the same way, for this Deha, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi to function, Atman is definitely needed, but this Atman is not affected by any of the things of these upadhis, any modification of these upadhis. Even in that formation, sometimes there is loud music that will be played, different formations are made, and whoever the king is or the president you call, they're just seated there. They're not affected by things which are happening over there. This next time, there is one more beautiful message from this that we will see and continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. There were some questions from last time. It will take. My phone turned off, sorry. Okay. So last time you mentioned that staying away from my weakness is called as Dhamma, or that thing that we are weak towards. But I've been told that resistance or subduing does not help. That is true. Vedanta does not only talk about suppressing or subduing our emotions. What it talks about is maturing out of them. And one step that is helpful towards that maturity is staying away from it with lot of viveka. If you only stay away from it, then it will become subduing or suppression. But if you stay away and then substitute it with something else, like satsang, sadhana, other positive fields of self-unfoldment, he says that is what Vedanta is talking about. So whatever that thing is, which I've understood is my weakness, and that is bothering me in my sadhana and in my everyday vyavahara, he says, don't play with fire. Don't say that I will be around that thing and still be unaffected and somehow or the other transcend it. Simple example is some food items, right? Especially if somebody likes sweet and they're not supposed to eat sweet. So that is a thing where I have weakness towards, let us say. Then a more practical way is to stay away from those towards which we have weakness. Now, it's not suppressing this desire, but we will substitute it with something else so that we can grow out of that kind of, attachment. Because what we are looking for at the end of the day is sukham. Why are we so caught up with that thing? We might call it weakness or whatever. We are caught up with that thing because I see sukham over there. I feel that that thing will give me joy. So if I have to move away from it, then it is said, I have to show this mind greener pasture. Right? That thing should be more attractive to me than what was there before. So for a sadhaka, competing with oneself itself is another challenge. That only gives us joy. Looking at my day yesterday and my day today, trying to become better than what I was yesterday. That itself is one kind of motivation for a sadhaka, and that alone will help us stay away from other things. Sadhana also can become another motivation, right? Morning, whatever routine we have, that can become an inspiration to wake up early. That can become an inspiration to go to bed early. We should see for ourselves what motivates us, right? Could you please review the paradox of existence or non-existence of Karana Sharira in a Jnani? So the paradox was, what would we say about Karana Sharira, causal body in a Jnani? What is the definition of causal body? It says it is of the nature of ignorance. And it is the cause of subtle body and gross body. Okay, these two definitions we will take. It is of the nature of ignorance, and it is the cause of subtle and gross body. So, okay, in Jnani, does Karana Sharira remain or not? If you say Karana Sharira is there, and you take the first definition, right, that Karana Sharira is of the nature of ignorance. You see, the very title of a Jnani is because he has Jnanam, means he has knowledge that has displaced this ignorance. So if you say is a Jnani and Karana Sharira is there, then what will be the paradox? That ignorance and knowledge, how can they coexist? Either you say is a Jnani or you say ignorance is there, is a Ajnani. So if you say yes, then that is a problem. If you say no, there is no Karana Sharira, then you say, well, what is the second definition of Karana Sharira? It is cause of subtle body and gross body. So if Karana Sharira is gone, how come his physical body is appearing? How come this mind is appearing over here? And you see that Jnani do all the things as they have been doing it before. So if Karana Sharira is not there, then how come its effects are being seen? If Karana is not there, its effect also, if cause is not there, effect also should not be there. But in the case of Jnani, we are seeing the effect and cause is not seen. If you say no, then that is the problem. So that is where we should think. Okay. Why this thinking? Because we will get clarity about nature of knowledge. Huh? Our purpose is not to say whether Jnani has Karana Sharira or not. These points will push us to think what is the nature of Karana Sharira and what is the nature of knowledge. What does knowledge do to us? And lot of other ideas you might be having about knowledge that will get, hopefully will get clarified. Okay, 3 bodies versus 5 sheath that I described in the class only. How do we map it? How come 3 shariras? How are they mapped to panchakoshas? What does the word parichinnatva mean? That chinna, you must have heard the word avachinna. Avachinna means what? Conditioned. So it is the same meaning here also. Parichinna means finite and limited. This consciousness is all pervading. It is without any conditioning, just like the space is all pervading. But because of some upadhi, like this room or some kind of conditioning which has come about, that all pervading space becomes parichinna. Right? And why is it? It has not actually become. That is why in that verse, 4th verse we saw, parichinna iva. Space has not become conditioned because of this room. Because my attention is on that room, I say this is room space and that is outside space. So Atman is also like that. Parichinna is only Iva. Atman has not become conditioned. It is only appearing to be conditioned. And we don't have to destroy any upadhi. Just like we don't have to destroy this space and then only we can say that space is all pervading. He says, no, through clear knowledge, understand this. But most importantly, hold on to this for dukkha nivritti. Right? And in Vyavahara also, what we otherwise saw, in Bhagavad Gita also we had seen, Vyapakatva, whenever it is discussed, the translation of it in Vyavahara is being accommodative of people. Why? Because I am that consciousness expressing in this whole creation. What is there to exclude anybody out? Right? If this we can gradually seep in, soak this knowledge in, then Vedanta will start working. Simpler way to put it is to say, my Bhagwan alone is there in this entire creation. What is there to exclude anybody from my thinking? Okay. All right. Let us see if there are any other quick questions. Now, what are the three things for Nirmala Mana? Kapata, Chala, Chidra. Kapata means deceit. Chala, Kapata means pretentiousness. Chala means deceit. Chidra means falsity. These three things. Okay, many of them had the same question. Mohi kapata chala chidrana bhava. Pretentiousness, deceit, and falsity. I'm looking at which question can be answered in the time that we have. Why is Anandamaya Kosha associated with causal body? Anandamaya Kosha is, that final bhoktrutva, which is there in all of us. Bhoktrutva means that experiencerhood. All those tendencies you call, or some kind of impressions, whatever is there, all of that is stored in this Anandamaya Kosha. And the name Anandamaya means it is very blissful. Why is it blissful? Because you can see our own deep sleep experience. Right? So in deep sleep, because there is no perception of duality, that is why it is all bliss. So it is called as Anandamaya Kosha. And that is the same definition of Karana Sharira also. So why it is mapped? Because that same thing is given two names. Right? In Tattva Bodha we saw, how is Karana Sharira described? Sat Swarupa Ajnanam. Right? Because there is no, one is it doesn't have knowledge of that absolute nature, that is also there. But it is Nirvikalpaka Rupam. It does not have any kind of duality or perception of duality. So that Sharira becomes Anandamaya. With the same name given in two different contexts. They are not two different things which are being tried to match. Okay, depending on the way in which it was classified, the predominance of one quality is taken and then it is named in that way. So if you say Anandamaya Kosha, predominance is of that Ananda portion. Right? That in this Kosha, it is only bliss because there is no perception of duality. And in Karana Sharira, the word Karana is because it is the cause of subtle and gross body. So that quality of that body is taken and the name is given accordingly. So they're not two different things. Okay. Okay, this question, I will open it up to everybody and then I'll pick it up next time. How do we say that Karana Sharira is with parts? Just now we said that we should understand Dehendriya Manobuddhi Prakrutibhyo Vilakshanam. That we should understand the nature of all these three different Shariras to be different from Atman. So, okay, Deha, I understand it is without parts, or it is with parts, right? Deha is with parts. Mind is also, thoughts are there, they keep coming and going. But how do you understand that this causal body is also with parts? You should think about it. Next time we will address it. Hari Om, everyone. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.